Cal Ripken's streak, the power out, and Kevin Costner. Cal Ripken Jr. is known as the Iron Man of baseball. On September 6, 1995, he broke Lou Gehrig's record by playing in his 2,131st consecutive game for the Baltimore Orioles. That streak eventually stretched all the way to 2,632 games before he finally sat down in 1998. But along the way, a rumor started swirling that added a wild twist to his already legendary career. The story goes back to August 14, 1997, when the Orioles were scheduled to play the Seattle Mariners at Camden Yards. Before that game, a strange power outage darkened parts of the ballpark, and the game was postponed. That event fueled one of the strangest conspiracy theories in baseball history. According to the rumor, Ripken came home before the game and supposedly caught Hollywood actor Kevin Costner in his house with his wife, Kelly Ripken. The story claims Ripken was too upset to play that night, and instead of breaking his famous streak, the Orioles staged a sudden power failure to cancel the game. The tale spread like wildfire through newspapers, radio shows, and eventually online forums years later. Ripken himself denied the entire thing, calling it absolutely ridiculous in interviews. Kevin Costner also laughed it off, saying he was friends with the Ripkens and that nothing like that ever happened. Costner even showed up at Camden Yards in 2001 and addressed the rumor directly, telling fans it was complete nonsense. Still, the power outage that night was very real, and the timing lined up too perfectly for many fans to dismiss. Even though stadium officials explained it as a problem with a circuit breaker, the legend had already taken on a life of its own. Today, the story of Ripken, Costner, and the mysterious blackout lives on as one of baseball's strangest and most entertaining pieces of gossip, even if nobody can take it seriously. Wade Boggs drank 107 beers on a flight. Wade Boggs was one of the best hitters of the 1980s and 1990s. He won 5 American League batting titles with the Boston Red Sox and finished his career with a .328 lifetime batting average. But for many fans, Boggs is remembered for a completely different kind of legend, one that has nothing to do with swinging a bat. The story says that Boggs once drank 107 beers on a cross-country team flight. Some versions say it was 64 beers, others claim 70. But the number most often repeated is 107. That figure is so outrageous that it almost feels impossible, but the tale refuses to die. Former teammates have fueled the myth by bringing it up in interviews. Pitcher Jeff Nelson once said Boggs could outdrink anyone alive, and confirmed that Boggs polished off cases of beer during flights. Boggs himself didn't exactly deny the story either. On an episode of the sitcom It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which aired in 2015, Boggs made a guest appearance playing himself. The characters on the show tried to break his drinking record, and Boggs joked about the myth as if it might be true. In another interview on ESPN, Boggs laughed when asked about the exact number. He admitted he could put away a few beers, but never settled on the final total. That wink and nod attitude only made the story more believable to fans. Of course, drinking 107 beers in a single day sounds beyond human, and doctors will tell you it's physically dangerous. Still, Boggs' legend survives because it fits perfectly with baseball's culture of road trips, long flights, and clubhouse storytelling. Whether it was 30, 60, or the mythical 107, Wade Boggs turned beer drinking into folklore. To this day, people debate the truth, but everyone agrees it's one of the funniest and weirdest stories tied to a Hall of Fame career. Curse of the Billy Goat. The story starts on October 6, 1945, during Game 4 of the World Series at Wrigley Field in Chicago. On this day, William "Billy" Sionis, a Greek immigrant who owned the Billy Goat Tavern, arrived at the ballpark with his pet goat, Murphy. Sionis actually had a ticket for the goat, but ushers complained that Murphy smelled terrible and bothered the other fans. Sionis was furious when security forced both him and Murphy out of the stadium. According to people who were there, he yelled that the Cubs would never win again. From that day forward, Cubs fans swore that a curse had been placed on the team. The results almost made that story feel real, as the Cubs lost the 1945 series to the Detroit Tigers in 7 games. In the years after, they repeatedly fell short. In 1969, when they had one of their strongest rosters ever, with players like Ron Santo, Billy Williams, and Ernie Banks, they collapsed late in the season. On September 9, 1969, the New York Mets were chasing them in the standings. During a critical game at Shea Stadium, a black cat strolled in front of Santo at the on-deck circle, walked across home plate, and headed toward the Cubs' dugout. Fans immediately tied that eerie moment to the GOAT curse. The Cubs kept losing key playoff games in 1984, 1989, and again in 2003, when a fan interference play involving Steve Bartman fueled the idea that the curse was still alive. Finally, in 2016, the curse was broken when they defeated the Los Angeles Dodgers 5-0 in Game 6 of the 2016 National League Championship Series to win the NL pennant. Then, on November 2nd of the same year, they beat the Cleveland Indians in Game 7 to win the World Series, ending a 108-year championship drought. Many fans said the ghost of Murphy had finally been put to rest. To this day, the curse of the Billy Goat remains one of baseball's strangest and most talked about legends.
Curse of the Bambino. The so-called Curse of the Bambino dates back to December 26, 1919. On that day, Boston Red Sox owner Harry Frazee sold Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees for $100,000. Frazee, a Broadway producer, needed the money to finance his stage plays, especially the musical No, No, Nanette. For Boston fans, it turned out to be the most painful deal in baseball history. Before the sale, Babe Ruth had been the biggest star in Boston. He led the Red Sox to 3 championships in 1915, 1916, and 1918. His home run power was unlike anything fans had ever seen. But once he went to New York, the Yankees became a dynasty, and Boston's fortunes collapsed. After 1918, the Red Sox failed to win a single World Series title for 86 years. Throughout the decades, every Boston heartbreak was blamed on the curse of the Bambino. In 1946, they lost the World Series to the St. Louis Cardinals when Eno Slaughter scored from first base on a hit. In 1967, 1975, and 1986, Boston fell again in dramatic fashion. The 1986 collapse against the New York Mets was the most painful. In Game 6, Mookie Wilson hit a slow roller through the legs of first baseman Bill Buckner, giving the Mets the win. Many Boston fans said that the curse was alive and well that night. The Yankees, on the other hand, won 26 championships during Boston's drought. The contrast made the curse story even stronger. It became so well known that in 1990, author Dan Shaughnessy even titled his book about Red Sox heartbreak, The Curse of the Bambino. Finally, in 2004, Boston shocked the baseball world. They came back from a 3-0 deficit against the Yankees in the American League Championship Series, the first time any team had ever done that. They went on to sweep the St. Louis Cardinals and win the World Series. The curse was finally considered broken. For Boston fans, it felt like closing a painful chapter that had lasted nearly a century. Babe Ruth's called shot.
One of baseball's most debated legends happened on October 1, 1932, during Game 3 of the World Series between the New York Yankees and the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field. The Yankees had already won the first 2 games, but tension was high. Babe Ruth stepped up to the plate in the 5th inning against pitcher Charlie Root. The Cubs bench had been heckling Ruth the entire game, and fans joined in. What happened next has become one of the sport's most famous mysteries. According to the legend, Ruth pointed toward the center field bleachers before the pitch. Some fans swore he called his shot, predicting he would hit a home run to that exact spot. On the next pitch, Ruth swung and blasted the ball into the center field stands, exactly where he had gestured. Yankee fans went crazy. Newspapers the next day splashed stories of the called shot, cementing the moment in baseball history. But not everyone agreed on what really happened. Charlie Root, the Cubs pitcher, always insisted that Ruth never called anything. Root said if Ruth had pointed to center field, he would have knocked him down with the next pitch. Ruth himself gave conflicting answers. Sometimes he laughed and admitted he just pointed toward the Cubs dugout after their insults. Other times, he played along with the idea of the legend. Film footage from that game exists, but it is grainy and unclear. Some historians believe Ruth was just motioning toward the Cubs bench, not the outfield. Still, the story continues to grow with time. For Yankees fans, the called shot is proof of Ruth's larger-than-life personality. For Cubs fans, it is an endless reminder of humiliation. Whether it really happened exactly as people tell it or not, the called shot has become a defining legend in the game's history. It is the kind of tale that makes baseball feel almost mythical. Doc Ellis pitches a no-hitter on LSD. On June 12, 1970, the Pittsburgh Pirates faced the San Diego Padres at San Diego Stadium. Doc Ellis, the Pirates pitcher, later claimed he was high on LSD during that game. Ellis said he had lost track of the days and thought he wasn't scheduled to pitch.
That morning, while in Los Angeles, he took acid. When a friend reminded him that he was due to start, he scrambled to San Diego still under the influence. Despite the circumstances, Ellis took the mound. He later described the experience as surreal. He said the ball sometimes looked huge, then tiny. He thought the catcher's mitt was changing size, and even claimed at one point he couldn't see his teammates clearly. He walked 8 batters and hit another, but he somehow managed to prevent any Padres player from getting a hit. The Pirates won 2-0, and Ellis had officially thrown a no-hitter. For years, people debated whether the story was true. Ellis first spoke about it in a 1984 interview with the Pittsburgh Press. Later, he repeated the story on national television, adding vivid details about the trip. His teammates confirmed that his control was wild that night, but they didn't know about the drugs until years later. Official records confirm that Ellis pitched a no-hitter on June 12th, so at least the baseball part is fact. Ellis was known as one of baseball's most outspoken and unpredictable players. He once wore hair curlers during warm-ups and was suspended for his off-field behavior. His LSD no-hitter remains his most famous story. In 2014, a documentary film called No, a Documentary retold the story in detail. Whether every part of his account is accurate or not, the idea of a pitcher throwing a no-hitter while high on acid makes it one of the wildest and most unforgettable legends in Major League Baseball. Shoeless Joe Jackson and the Black Sox fix. The 1919 World Series between the Chicago White Sox and the Cincinnati Reds will forever be remembered as one of baseball's darkest scandals. 8 White Sox players were accused of conspiring with gamblers to intentionally lose the series in exchange for money. At the center of it all was Joseph Jefferson Jackson, better known as Shoeless Joe Jackson. Jackson was one of the best hitters of his era. During that World Series, he still hit an impressive .375, recorded 12 hits, and even drove in 6 runs. Those stats don't sound like a man deliberately trying to lose. Yet, when the scandal broke, Jackson admitted to receiving $5,000 from gamblers. He always insisted he played hard on the field, and his numbers seemed to back that up. But the stain of the fix was too much for Major League Baseball. In 1920, Commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis banned Jackson and the other 7 accused players for life, regardless of whether their performances suggested guilt. This ruling ended Jackson's career at just 32 years old, despite his lifetime .356 batting average, which still ranks among the highest in MLB history. The mystery of his involvement continues to spark debate. Some historians argue he was illiterate and didn't fully understand what he was signing up for when he accepted the money. Others claim his play during the series proves he was innocent. Fans even petitioned to have him reinstated to baseball's Hall of Fame. More than a century later, Shoeless Joe's name remains tied to the infamous Black Sox scandal. It's a story of corruption, broken trust, and what might have been had one of the game's greatest natural hitters been allowed to keep playing. Giants sign-stealing telescope. The 1951 National League pennant race between the New York Giants and the Brooklyn Dodgers was legendary. It ended with Bobby Thompson's dramatic walk-off home run on October 3, 1951 at the Polo Grounds, forever known as the shot heard round the world. But decades later, a secret came out that made the story even more controversial. Rumors swirled that the Giants had been stealing signs from opposing catchers during the second half of that season. In 2001, several former Giants players admitted the scheme was real. They had placed a telescope in the center field clubhouse of the Polo Grounds. A coach or staffer would use it to read the opposing catcher's signals. Once they identified the pitch, they relayed it to the Giants' dugout using an electric buzzer system connected by wire. From there, a signal would be given to the batter about what pitch was coming. This raised questions about the fairness of Thompson's famous home run off Dodgers pitcher Ralph Branca. Was it aided by the stolen sign? Thompson himself always denied he knew what pitch was coming, and some teammates backed him up. Still, the admission that the system existed gave fuel to critics who said the Giants had an unfair edge in their miraculous late-season comeback. The Giants had been 13.5 games behind the Dodgers on August 11, 1951, before storming back to tie the race and force the playoff series. While the sign stealing didn't guarantee wins, it certainly could have helped them during that stretch. Even with the truth revealed decades later, baseball fans remain divided. Some argue sign stealing has always been part of the game, while others call it outright cheating.
What's certain is that the 1951 Giants' comeback and Thompson's home run are forever shaded by the telescope scandal.
Corked bats myth 1. Of baseball's most persistent myths is that corked bats make hitters more powerful. The idea is simple. Hollow out a wooden bat and fill it with cork, rubber, or even super balls. Supposedly, this makes the bat lighter and creates a trampoline effect, sending the ball flying farther. But science tells a different story. Physicists and baseball researchers have tested corked bats for decades. What they found is that while corking a bat does make it lighter, which allows a hitter to swing faster, it actually reduces the ball's exit speed on contact. The trampoline effect just isn't real in this case. Instead, corking a bat generally makes the ball travel a shorter distance, not farther. That hasn't stopped some players from trying. In June 2003, Chicago Cubs slugger Sammy Sosa was caught using a corked bat when his bat shattered against the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. Umpires found pieces of cork inside, and Sosa was suspended for 8 games. He claimed it was a practice bat he accidentally used in a game, but the incident fueled debates about how much corking really helps. Even earlier, players like Billy Hatcher in 1987 were caught with corked bats, proving the trick has been around a long time. Despite MLB rules clearly banning it, the temptation for an extra edge lingers in players' minds. Fans love the idea of a super-powered bat, and the myth has grown into baseball folklore. But physics papers, like those published in the early 2000s through Cornell's archive database, consistently show corked bats are more about deception than performance. In short, corking may make you swing quicker, but it won't make the ball soar out of the park any faster. eephus pitch origins. Few pitches in baseball history are as strange and amusing as the eephus pitch. Unlike a blazing fastball or a sharp curveball, the eephus is intentionally slow. In fact, it's so slow, it almost looks like a soft lob tossed in a backyard game. The ball floats toward the plate in a high arc, often dropping below the hitter's expectations. The pitch was invented in the 1940s by Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher Rip Sewell, although some historians claim it was invented long before Sewell used it. Regardless, Sewell unveiled it during the 1944 All-Star Game in Pittsburgh, where it instantly captured attention. Batters didn't know what to do with such an odd delivery. Some laughed, others grew frustrated, and a few swung so early they looked foolish. As for the meaning of the name eephus, manager Frankie Frisch suggests that the pitch was named by outfielder Maurice Van Robes. When asked what it meant, he said, "Eephus ain't nothing, and that's a nothing pitch." So while the origin of the pitch and its name remain in debate, eephus may come from a similar Hebrew word that translates as zero. One of the most famous encounters with the eephus came in the 1946 All-Star Game, when Ted Williams of the Boston Red Sox finally timed one of Sewell's pitches and crushed it for a home run. Williams admitted he had to adjust his entire approach just to handle it. That moment showed the eephus could still be risky if the batter wasn't completely fooled. Other pitchers picked it up over the years. Satchel Paige, one of the greatest pitchers in baseball history, was known to throw similar slow-motion pitches to mess with hitters. In the 1970s, Steve Hamilton of the New York Yankees had his own version called the Folly Floater. More recently, pitchers like Vicente Padilla and Orlando Hernandez occasionally used it in games. The eephus isn't a regular part of a pitcher's arsenal. Rather, it's more of a surprise weapon to catch a hitter off guard. Fans love it because it looks ridiculous, almost like a prank, but it's very real. The eephus pitch has become one of baseball's quirkiest legends.